Good morning, everybody. Top of the morning. It is 11 o'clock, and I would like to just say welcome to all our esteemed guests. Welcome to the first kickoff of our IAB Insights series. This year, we'll be marking the 4th year running, and in episode 33, we'll be looking at embracing the future of business. On that note, a lot of newness has encroached the IAB this year, and with that said, I would like to welcome our new CEO, Razia Pillay. A powerhouse in her own right, Razia is an energetic and motivated digital evangelist who is already an active and long-standing IAB member. We are all aware of her impressive ability and commitment to youth upliftment and digital transformation. We all believe she's the right candidate for this time. Razia, welcome.
Thank you, Ria. Hi, everyone. It's very exciting to see you all with us today. As CEO of IAB South Africa, obviously my focus for this year is built on the mandate of the IAB, which is to continue to drive transformation agenda, as well as to seek out ways to include more of South Africa into the digital marketing industry through education. We are extremely excited for the year ahead, and we hope that you are too. We're here to guide you and support you through your challenges and help you celebrate your successes, just like the Bookmarks Awards, which, by the way, also kicks off today. So look out for it in your comms.
And first up, we have our key speaker, Emma Carpenter, who is the Head of Design Experience at Accenture Interactive and Group Director of Fjord Johannesburg. Emma is performance-oriented and award-winning designer, strategist, and creative director, with 23 years under her belt of digital agency experience, both in South Africa and in London. She inspires by the blend of experience, technology, and beautiful work that drives insight, produces measurable results, and changes behavior. Emma today will be looking at how South African businesses can start thinking about the metaverse and other important trends to pave a successful way for 2022 and beyond. Welcome, Emma. So excited to hear what you have for us today.
Thank you very much, Ria. All right, here we go. Okay, so our discussion on the metaverse today actually comes from the Fjord Trends 2022, which collectively tell a story around people and their relationships with the planet, technology, brands, and of course, each other. So firstly, before we get started, I just want to run a quick poll. You'll see the question there on the bottom right-hand side for everybody. So what I'd like to know is, the best way to begin a metaverse proof of concept is to start small. Have you, in your places of work or locally, have you started the conversation internally, been to a meeting or a working session where it's being discussed? So I'd just really like to know how many people have already started thinking about this at work. So moving to the next slide. Fjord Trends is in its 15th year, and we'll give you a little link at the end to the full report. And so for this call, I'll just be looking through one of our key trends for this year. So let's get into it. This is really around the next frontier. So the metaverse has burst onto the scene, showing promise that it can expand beyond its gaming roots. It's involved digital culture and is offering people and brands a new place to interact, create, consume, and earn. We've all got more questions than answers, but the major headlines that are making us feel like we're on the brink of something new, or that new frontier that promises infinite possibilities to create new value. And as Ria said, we'll have a look at how businesses are doing that now and what South African businesses can be looking towards doing in the next 12 months and beyond. So what's going on? In the metaverse, people can go to a place within its own spatial logic or experience it on top of what they're doing currently. This new system of place will shift culture and digital behavior, and finding success here will rely on brands' understanding of customers and how they exist currently in the metaverse. And we think there's 5 key building blocks around this. Firstly, gaming. Worlds like Fortnite and Roblox are early and big names in this space so far. And we've picked up that people will go there for 3 reasons. Firstly, to compete or achieve something. Secondly, to connect with others on a shared experience or mission. And lastly, to immerse themselves deeply in a story. Secondly, it's a new place to make money. And we're also seeing new job types and new employment opportunities within the metaverse. Think about the following job roles. Firstly, creators who will make the assets, performers who will create real-time content, the bridges that will connect the physical to the digital world, and participants that will learn, explore, and enhance. And finally, builders who will design and organize these experiences. We're also seeing consumer to consumer commerce being prevalent here, and people paying people to support their work within the environment. Thirdly, product scarcity is a feature of the internet for the first time, and Andrew's going to talk a little bit more around NFTs shortly. One piece of evidence that we have around ownership and demand, and a good one, is that in May this year, a Gucci handbag sold for more than the price of its real world version. So we're seeing news like this weekly. And as we explore new commercial avenues, we'll see brands looking at, of course, to do this and also use PR to gain traction in this space. The fourth building block is tech advancements. These are really allowing us to experience 3D and augmented reality in new ways. We've seen Meta investing heavily in VR in the last year. We've all read articles about the US Army using HoloLens tech from Microsoft, which I see is likely to be deployed in September of this year. Niantic, that's the guys that brought us Pokemon, are making the physical world better and using AR to partner up with Punch Drunk, which is a theatre production group with big immersive experiences, looking to create theatre productions that are non-linear and moving outside of the traditional framework of a theatre experience. And the fifth building block is defining characteristics of the metaverse, which is the opportunity to decide who we are and how we present ourselves there. So being together in real time and having shared experiences, and a great piece of evidence here is Netflix have launched a product called Watch Party, and this allows you to watch experiences via TV with friends. And I know for me, that's one of the key things that I'm looking forward to once that launches here. So every year we take a look at these global trends. We write an African perspective, which you can also find on LinkedIn, and we'll send you the link afterwards. So what does this actually mean for Africa? We know we are home to a very young population with an appetite for new tech and innovation. But despite recent growth in internet connectivity, we know accessibility in Africa is still an issue. But as Africans, we no longer want to be just consumers. We want to be the creators, influencers, and embrace that technology and to see what impact we can have on our future as well as that of humanity. A couple of local metaverse examples is Africa Rare. This is the picture that you can see on the left. It's a 3D virtual reality immersive experience and art marketplace that showcases the best of African creativity and has recently just sold out a Norman Catherine's first NFT collection. Similarly, another, Africa No Filter, which is a narrative change organization, and Meta have also announced a partnership to launch a program called Future Africa, Telling Stories, Building Worlds, which is aimed at boosting virtual reality and also incredibly launches the careers of new creators here. We know our businesses in Africa can embrace the next frontier with confidence, and virtual experiences fit for our local consumers and creators. It's clear that Africa has primary resource, which is our youth, can adapt successfully to businesses, and businesses must involve them early in the design process, working together to then define the technology.
Next up, we have our next speaker, Andrew Ridgway, the founder of MintMe NFT. Andrew attended Brunel University, where he got his master's degree. And before entering the Web 3.0 space, Andrew worked for a prestigious aerospace companies such as Airbus and Rolls-Royce. Through that, his ambition steered him towards entrepreneurship and has become a passionate professional in the blockchain industry. He has provided individuals and companies with successful solutions and strategies in various industries to enter the Web 3.0 through blockchain, cryptocurrencies, and NFTs. Welcome, Andrew. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hi, good morning, Ria. Thank you for having me. So yes, I will be discussing how South African businesses can use NFTs successfully. So the first point that I'd like to raise, just in case people aren't aware, obviously NFTs stand for non-fungible token, but the definition for fungible means that it's replaceable by another identical item and mutually interchangeable. So that means my $1 is equal to someone else's $1. So what are NFTs? So the actual definition for an NFT is that it's a cryptographic asset on a blockchain with a unique identification and metadata, making it distinguishable and unique from one another. So there's a lot of jargon in there, I know, so I'll just break that down a little bit. So the most important thing about NFTs is that it's built on the blockchain. So blockchains are dependent on scalability, security, and decentralization. Blockchains that NFTs are built on, the main one is Ethereum, but then there are newer blockchains that have been built, such as Solana and Tezos, which have reduced transaction fees and are better for the environment, which I can explain a little bit later. But the main benefits and use cases of blockchain is that it provides provenance and transparency. So it's built on distributed ledger technology, and that makes all transactions on the blockchain traceable, irreversible, and permanent. So I can go back in 10 years and look at all the transactions I was sending, whether it was crypto or NFTs. Another massive benefit and use case for the blockchain and NFT space is that all blockchains are programmable smart contracts. And what that means is that a smart contract can be built and be unique for different functionalities. So whether you're a real estate agent who wants to implement blockchain into selling houses, or even if you are an artist who wants to sell their artwork, you can build your smart contract to be unique to that transaction, and it's all automated. So rather than paperwork back and forward, authorization, and middlemen in between, it's all done automatically complete between peer-to-peer transactions. And the beauty of the blockchain is that metadata can be updated and changed in real time. So if I purchase an NFT today, and if a real world event happens, if I've programmed that in, that NFT can change and the physical form can change as well. The other benefits of smart contract is that you can program things in like royalties, which artists obviously never used to have access to before, and additional content, which again, I'll go into a bit later. So just to finish off, what are NFTs? A lot of people think to be a purely digital asset, but it's not at all. NFTs are connected to the real world. So NFTs, as you've seen, can be connected to real art pieces. So for example, there was a Banksy piece that was turned into an NFT, and then unfortunately, in my opinion, they destroyed the real Banksy piece to make the NFT more valuable. But essentially, that will always be recorded on the blockchain. It will always be there, and people will actually be able to view the data and information to that real world Banksy piece that was destroyed. And what I mean by connected even further to the real world, NFTs will become very, very powerful in terms of property, fashion, identification, products, art, music, and much, much more. So how is South Africa embracing NFTs, and what opportunities does it have? So the image I'm showing here is an artwork by Norman O'Flynn. So World Art Gallery, early 21, launched this artwork that Norman made, and basically they made the NFT counterpart as a GIF. So it was a moving image, and they listed it on OpenSea. But what they did, they tied that digital image to the real world artwork. So whoever purchased this NFT also receive the real piece. And what will happen now is that real piece will need to be sold along with the NFT, because it's tied together through tagging technology. So if you scan that tag, that NFT will show up who's the owner when it was last purchased. So if I bought it and then I sold the physical piece without the NFT, effectively, if someone were to scan that tag and it's in someone else's house, it would show up as mine. So legally, you would have to sell it through the NFT. Moment Marketplace is a South African launch marketplace. They've done very, very well. They launched an auction back in February. Sorry, not February, October last year. They launched in February last year, but did their first auction. And they worked with a bunch of different projects. So again, they were selling art, they were selling trainers, which they turned into digital NFT pieces. And again, they were all tied physically to that NFT. So if you scan that physical piece on the barcode, it will show up all the information on the NFT, how much it was purchased for, who owns it, and all the rights that you get to that NFT. But one amazing thing that they did, they worked with a conservation rhino project, and they made a digital 3D rendered rhino horn of one of the horns of the rhinos that they look after. And that sold for, I believe, over $10,000. And essentially, the great thing there is that it shows that charity and conservationist groups can really get involved in this. So the actual NFT, the utility that they offered, is that the person who purchased it would also get to go and see all the conservationist efforts. They will get kept up to date on all the information around the rhinos and the group. And they get to provide an extra experience that you would never usually get just donating to charity. So I think it was a really unique way and a really great way to show how NFTs and charities can really add a bit more experience and interaction between the people that are trying to donate and support the charities. And then down here we have a film that was raised by NFTs called The Two Hues. So this only launched this year. And The Two Hues, literally it's a project that they were struggling to raise funds for. They launched NFTs to raise money for the project, and now they've successfully raised funds, and it's been entered into film festivals all over Europe and is doing quite successful. And there's been other documentaries and films that have raised money in the past through NFTs, and they provide value to those people who purchase the NFTs by sharing revenue, and also allowing them to get access to premieres and so on and so forth. So again, it's a way that brands can really interact with the communities. NFTFi is a South African company that just raised $5 million. Again, they are allowing people to put their NFTs up for collateral and loans, and is a really useful way to really make your NFTs make more money for you. And then, as Emma mentioned, there's a African Metaverse project being built here in South Africa called Africa Rare. They launched artworks again with Norman. And they're building out what's called Ubuntu land, and they'll be selling land there for companies, individuals to purchase land and build out products to the metaverse.
But next up, we have our amazing speaker. who will be taking a look at how businesses are tapping into e-commerce and how we can adapt to those approaches. Is Brian Mubuto. He is the Chief Strategy Officer at Mediacom South Africa. With over 13 years of marketing experience in his role as Chief Strategy Officer at Mediacom, he is tasked with driving changes and unlocking growth for agency, clients, and their brands. Brian is the champion of diversity and inclusion, sitting on Mediacom's Global Belonging Council and helping to make it the most representative agency in the world.
Thank you. Okay, so as per the intro, I'm Brian. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at Mediacom, but e-commerce is a personal passion of mine. It's something that I pursue not only in my day job, but something that I pursue as a side hustle as well, but we won't get into that. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about e-commerce, and we're going to see about how this opportunity is growing in South Africa and how some brands or businesses have already started taking advantage. And I'll close off with a couple of tips in terms of how you might be able to get started yourself, or if you've already started, how you might start thinking about taking things to the next level. So I think the phenomenal thing here is that we are witnessing one of the biggest shifts in consumer behavior that we've seen in like forever. Africa has been typically lagging behind the Eastern world, or the Western world rather, in terms of e-commerce adoption. But COVID-19 almost acted like the great equalizer and accelerated e-commerce adoption across the entire globe at unprecedented rate and levels. Basically, there are a lot of different estimates out there, depending on which research study you're reading or looking into, but I think this one stuck with me because it was some very well-rounded numbers. And this estimate basically said that 10 years of progress was seen in the first 10 months of the lockdown. So in that first 10 months of 2020, everybody rushed and started having to shop online because obviously people could not go out and about, people could not go to shops as they normally would have done. And, especially in a country like South Africa, where we love going to the mall, you can only imagine people scrambling to find an alternative way to be able to conduct their shopping. Which brought us to some interesting local numbers. So 66% of South Africans actually tried shopping online for the first time in 2020. That's a whole 66% of our population. And the interesting thing as well is that, people often talk about how are things evolving now that, we're sort of phasing out our lockdown restrictions. What is this new normal? And what we see is about 70% of people in South Africa still are shopping online at least once a month. So to put that growth further into context, between 2018 and 2019, the growth in e-commerce adoption doubled to 2.8%. And then in that period from 2020 to 2021, the growth was set to increase to 4% of total retail sales. That's a very significant growth in terms of the African context. And if we look at the revised projections in terms of how the market value for e-commerce is going to look like in the next, 3 years now, we're looking at 225 billion from a base of 68 billion in retail sales in 2021. So that is a big, big chunk of money out there that's available to people who are willing to take the risk, people who are willing to be brave enough to go out and venture into selling their products or goods and services online. So now, three quick tips to sort of help us be amongst the early adapters of or winners. The first is launch and learn. I think in the digital marketing space, we speak a lot about testing and learning. And whilst testing and learning is very important, don't get me wrong, I think there's an opportunity here for people to actually step out, venture out, and actually start to take advantage of the fact that the demand is already there, the fact that there is a heightened interest from consumers, and rather just launch and learn along the way. You'll see a lot of the platforms, even every shop that I spoke about earlier on, are not perfect in their infancy, but they do sort of get their foot in the door and start to actually develop and evolve as they go. The second thing, which is, I suppose, a build onto that, is fake it till you make it. Gone are the days of DIY sites. I know a lot of people have probably gone through that phase where they probably had a WordPress blog in one stage in their lives. I know I did, but that is not really an acceptable way to venture out into the space. Consumers now have a higher expectation of what an e-commerce experience is supposed to be like. And I think that's why we've seen the likes of Woolies sort of struggling a little bit in and amongst the company of the One Carts and the Checkers 60. So what you really have to do is go out there and meet that consumer expectation with a professional approach to how you build your e-commerce presence. And I think that leads us to the third point, which is a very important aspect. I think the question to really ask yourself is, if you wouldn't buy something off a shelf within, the physical retail space, then why would you buy it on a digital shelf? So in essence, we have to take as much care when we're building our digital storefronts and our digital shelves as we do when we're sort of buying our drops in a retail space, making sure our branding is correct in a retail space.
Get super, super excited, ladies and gentlemen, because we have our final close-off speaker. We have Dhakia Raycliffe, a digital marketing learner and intern at Red and Yellow, as well as TU Cape Town. She'll be speaking on how a younger new digital marketer expects the industry to be relevant to her young segment, and how the market she sees herself working with the new world.
Hi, I'm Dhakia. I'm a 24-year-old digital marketing intern and a student at Red and Yellow. And I am what one would refer to as chronically online, which essentially means that for the past 10 or 11 years, I've spent a lot more of my time on the internet than is probably strictly advisable. My preteen and teenage years were characterized by online social games like Stardoll, Club Penguin, and of course Farmville and Petful on Facebook. The teen years following that was spent deeply embedded in online fandoms. And obviously in my current stage of life, I find myself actually working in the online space as a digital marketer. So what I'm here today to do is to combine my insights as a young digital marketer with what I have now come to know or come to understand about the Web3 community, and particularly how it relates to the younger segment of the market. So in order to do that, I want to start off by sharing some poll results with you on how consumers perceive NFTs, which was done by Pulse. This is a poll that surveyed 500 people between the ages of 16 and 34 years old. And the first question that participants were asked was actually, how much do they know about NFTs? As you can see, the middle bar over there, 44%, majority of the participants were in that gray zone where they had actually heard of NFTs, but they didn't fully understand what they are. And then the remaining participants there's quite an even split between the two extremes, where some had never heard of NFTs and some knew about NFTs and understood them fully. So that's quite interesting. And then what happened after this first question was that those who said they'd never heard of NFTs were shown a quick description and example of what NFTs are, not unlike the very helpful explanation that Andrew gave us earlier. And then the following question was asked: how do young people feel about brands using NFTs in their marketing efforts? So the participants were asked to classify whether they thought that brands including NFTs in their marketing was interesting, fun, clever, or cringy, pointless, or if they just didn't care about it. So if we look at it by group, the ones who said that they already knew what NFTs are and fully understood it, most of them thought that NFTs are interesting. But then between the remaining categories, fun, clever, cringy, pointless, and I don't care, there's quite an even split, with a small percentage of them saying that they don't care. Among those who were in that gray zone, also 40% of them found it interesting. And then there's a mixed representation of emotions in the remaining categories. Lastly, among those who have never heard of NFTs, 30% of them said it was interesting. Only 6% thought it was fun, with 15% thinking it was clever. And 44% of them said that they don't care. So it's clear that the group with no prior knowledge of NFTs had a much less favorable view of the brands that use it in their marketing. And then the other two groups showed quite a mixed bag of segments. What are the insights that brands can take out of this when thinking about incorporating Web3 elements into their marketing mix? These insights are nothing new. Firstly, you have to know your brand and you have to know your customer. As much as brands may be eager to get ahead of the curve and get in wallets early, personally, I think I would advise a very careful approach. As we saw earlier, many people live in that gray area where they're not super sure exactly what NFTs are. I'm sure a lot of people logging onto this Insight series today also fall into that category. So as a brand, I think one would have to move through careful thought and research when thinking about bringing NFTs or Web3 tech to the party in such a way that it doesn't actually alienate some of your target audience. Because if your audience starts to suspect that you may be dipping into it as purely a gimmick and just for the sake of innovation, you stand the risk of losing them. And I cannot stress enough that this is especially true of younger segments. Gen Zers and even Zillennials have such a keen nose for a gimmick. They can spot an ad from a mile away, and they won't hesitate to call out what they believe to be an empty marketing strategy that's not aligned with the brand's values or the brand's action. And how can you add real value to your customer? Well, depending on what they look like or what you know about them, you can think about adding value in a couple of ways. The first being art ownership, the ability to own something that is unique and support art that you think is amazing is a plus here for some people. You might lean into the idea of exclusivity. So as mentioned earlier, the idea of the Gucci bag, the fact that nobody else can claim the bragging rights to owning this piece of art, this piece of work, this piece of land in the metaverse, etc. Chaos and comedy. So I have to preface this by saying that taking this approach is not for the faint of heart, but the internet is given to quite a bit of chaos. And so if a playful and humorous approach happens to be in line with your brand tone, I think it's worth thinking about. My favorite example of this is Taco Bell, who released a collection of NFTs that were basically just gifts of tacos, and they sold them for starting bids of $1 each. And then the next way that you could add value is to offer your consumer an opportunity to be a part of a good cause. And that could be an opportunity to let your brand's values shine through. You will have the opportunity to craft a story of why you are moving in this direction, and to do it explicitly so that both you and your audience are clear on what the why is to lean into community. Where we are right now, the best aspect of being a fan of any brand is not actually the product or the service itself, But the best aspect of being a fan of a brand is being part of a community of fans. I just love this tweet that says that the community is in the replies and not the posts.
And I would like to just thank everyone for coming. Thank our panelists, thank the riveting and insightful information that you've given us for us today. I think even for me, I learned so much, so much, and just trying to figure out how it will function in these technologies will function in the real world and in our businesses has been super insightful. So I'm going to have to close it there, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. Please reach out to our new CEO. She'd love to hear from you at Razia at iabsa.net for any feedback or questions on how to be a part of the IAB membership community. Yes, and please look out for our next episode, 34. This episode will be in March, and it will be talking about podcasts for media, marketing, and advertising. And for me, Ria Hueta, the host of today, signing out.